All right, we're here with 9 Health expert Dr. Payal Kohli, who's been helping answer questions, all of your questions about COVID-19. People really have some great questions.
They really have been great, yeah.
They're getting really in depth. So
Yeah.
our first one viewer asked, if you don't have symptoms but have been in contact with someone who tested positive, will you test positive before presenting symptoms?
So it's possible that you can, because some people, remember, never have symptoms at all, or some people are infectious and test positive for about 5 to 7 days before they show symptoms. So if you have been exposed to somebody who has tested positive, talk to your doctor about whether you need testing, but presume that you may be positive even if you're not having symptoms, to really try to isolate yourself from family members, friends, and your community.
Absolutely, until you know for sure.
Yeah.
That kind of leads us to our second question. Another viewer asked, if a husband and wife have no symptoms, should they still sleep in the same bed?
Yeah, so that's a tough one, because remember, I keep saying you can have no symptoms, or you can have, be infectious before you have symptoms. So this is a really personal choice. Is the risk slightly higher when you're close to somebody else? Yes. But having said that, if you have no exposure and no symptoms, it might be important for your relationship to continue to maintain some intimacy and be together, and especially at a difficult time like this. So I think that needs to be a personal decision. If you've had an exposure to somebody or you have symptoms, then no question you need to isolate, including husband and wife. Yeah. But if none of those are present and you have no symptoms, I don't know that it's necessary at this point to kind of preventively isolate, but recognize that it slightly increases your risk because you are exposed to somebody else.
What if one or the other went on some type of vacation or business, thing, comes back? Should they separate for a little while?
I think it's probably not a bad idea. Yeah, and it's usually, like we talked about 5 to 12 days, people will show symptoms. Okay. So 1 or 2 weeks apart may not be the worst thing, because that's the most conservative path forward. But again, this has to be a very personal decision between a husband and wife.
Just to make sure. All right, lastly, a viewer says, I hear COVID-19 can live in the air up to 3 hours. Is that true?
So this is a really important question, because all this time we've talked about droplets, respiratory droplets, coughing, sneezing, and then they basically fall to the ground, and that's why we talk about 6 to 8 feet distance, because they don't really fly farther than that. Yeah. But airborne,
6 feet's enough.
It's pretty far, as you can see. But airborne is a whole different story. That's sort of like a fog. So think about a fog that hangs in the air for several hours. And there was a study that just came out that said the droplets can be aerosolized. If they're aerosolized using a nebulizer, like a high velocity aerosol, they can potentially last in the air for several hours. So it's possible that some level of coronavirus transmission may be occurring through these aerosolized droplets, but we feel like that's a very low likelihood. It's a rare form of transmission. The majority of transmission is really still occurring through those respiratory droplets that go 6 to 8 feet, because if it was all occurring through aerosolized droplets, we would see it spread a lot faster.
Right.
So it's important to kind of keep that in the back of our minds, that under certain conditions, maybe they can survive in the air for several hours, but for the most part, it's really the close contact.
Such good questions.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Kohli, thank you.